Hi, and welcome to another video. Dear Muslims, you believe the Spirit who revealed the Quran to Muhammad was the angel Gabriel. But have you ever investigated and asked yourself, was it actually Gabriel who appeared to him? Fortunately, we have authentic reports of how the angel Gabriel appears to people, as recorded in the Bible long before the time of Muhammad. So we can use these earlier historical accounts and compare and judge whether or not Muhammad actually had encounters with the true biblical angel Gabriel or with some other spirit. When we make this comparison, you'll be shocked to discover that when you read the Bible and the Quran, you are actually reading about two totally different Gabriels, two totally different spirits. Due to the fact that the Bible came long before the Quran, let's start with the Bible. Starting with the Old Testament, it records two incidences of Gabriel's appearance to Daniel. We read in Daniel chapter 8, verses 16 to 18, quote, "And I heard a man's voice from Ulay calling, 'Gabriel, tell this man the meaning of the vision.' And he came near the place where I was standing. I was terrified and fell prostrate. 'Son of man,' he said to me, 'understand that the vision concerns the time of the end.' While he was speaking to me, I was in a deep sleep, with my face to the ground. Then he touched me and raised me to my feet." The other Old Testament incident is in Daniel chapter 9, verses 20 to 22. Quote, "While I was speaking and praying, confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and making my request to the Lord my God for his holy hill, while I was still in prayer, Gabriel, the man I had seen in the earlier vision, came to me in swift flight, about the time of the evening sacrifice. He instructed me and said to me, 'Daniel, I have now come to give you insight and understanding.'" Now we turn to the New Testament, which records another two incidences of Gabriel's appearance to people. We read in Luke chapter 1, verses 13 and 18 to 19, Gabriel appeared to Zechariah. Quote, "But the angel said to him, 'Do not be afraid, Zechariah, your prayer has been heard.'" It goes on to say, Zechariah asked the angel, "How can I be sure of this? I am an old man, and my wife is well along in years." The angel answered, "I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to tell you this good news." And the other New Testament incident is in Luke chapter 1, verses 26 to 30, where he appears to Mary. Quote, "In the 6th month, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name was Mary. The angel went to her and said, 'Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you.' Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. But the angel said to her, quote, 'Do not be afraid, Mary, you have found favor with God.'" End quote. So, as you can see, there's at least two noticeable facts about the angel Gabriel in these biblical accounts when he appeared to Daniel, Zechariah, and Mary. Number one, Gabriel is known to bring calmness and help relieve the fears of people. As we saw already, Daniel was standing but fell prostrate because he was terrified. So Gabriel touched Daniel and raised him back to his feet, which indicates Gabriel made Daniel feel more secure or calmer again. Additionally, we saw on two other occasions, Gabriel specifically told Zechariah and Mary, quote, "Do not be afraid," end quote. Number two, Gabriel is also known for making sure people understood the message he was bringing, as we saw when he spoke to Daniel saying, quote, "I have now come to give you insight and understanding," end quote. So Daniel was not left in a state of confusion. Now, in light of these two facts about angel Gabriel, let us now compare these earlier historical biblical accounts with Muhammad's much later alleged encounters with Gabriel, to judge whether or not his encounters were with the true biblical angel Gabriel or with some other spirit. Turning now to Islamic sources, we find the Quran has only two clear references to Gabriel where he is mentioned by name. However, unlike the Gospel of Luke, where Gabriel is specifically identified as an angel, the Quran's references to Gabriel are not very helpful at all, as it gives us the impression that Gabriel may not even be an angel. Let me briefly show you what I mean. The two references to Gabriel in the Quran are found in chapter 2, verses 97 and 98, and chapter 66, verse 4. Not only does neither passage actually identify Gabriel as an angel, looking at the clumsy way the Quran is written, it actually appears to distinguish Gabriel as a being different from the angels. Quran chapter 2 verses 97 to 98 says, quote,
من كان عدوا لله وملائكته ورسله وجبريل وميكال فإن الله عدو للكافرين.
Say, whoever is an enemy to Gabriel, he it was that brought it down upon thy heart by the leave of God, confirming what was before it, and for a guidance and glad tidings to the believers. Whoever is an enemy to God, and his angels, and his messengers, and Gabriel, and Michael, surely God is an enemy to the unbelievers. While Quran chapter 66 verse 4 says, quote, If ye twain turn unto Allah repentant, for your hearts desired, and if ye aid one another against him, meaning Muhammad, then lo, Allah, even He, is his protecting friend, and Gabriel, and the righteous among the believers, and the angels are his helpers.
وجبريل وصالح المؤمنين والملائكة بعد ذلك ظهير.
As you can see here in the Quran, when the different classes of beings are listed, namely Allah, the righteous believers, and the angels, in these two references, Gabriel gets listed separately from them all, as if he is a different being from the others. What's even more interesting is that the Quran may even be suggesting that the Islamic Gabriel is from the category of beings known as the jinn. Muslims believe jinns are basically spirits made from fire according to Quran chapter 15 verse 27 and chapter 55 verse 15. The jinn are commonly regarded as demonic. So why do I say that the Islamic Gabriel may actually be a jinn? Well, another interesting point is that when we normally think of angels, we think of them as messengers. But we noticed in Quran chapter 2 verses 97 to 98, when it listed several different groups of beings, the angels and messengers were actually distinguished from each other. In this specific context, the way the verse is worded, messengers are actually not necessarily angels. In Islam, messengers may also come from the jinn spirits also. We see this Islamic teaching in Quran chapter 6 verses 130 and 131. Where Allah is said to send messengers from both men and jinn. Quote, O ye assembly of jinns and men, came there not unto you messengers from amongst you?
يا معشر الجن والإنس ألم يأتكم رسل منكم.
As you can see here, the jinn spirits are directly addressed. So in Islam, messengers can come from the jinn spirits also. Yet in Quran chapter 2 verses 97 to 98 we saw that it was Gabriel, a being different from the angels, who was the messenger bringing the Quran to Muhammad. So by relying upon the Quran, consequently, we end up being confused about the true identification of Gabriel, with the evidence pointing us towards him being a jinn rather than an angel. The fact is, the author of the Quran is clumsy and not clear about this. So we are forced now to turn our attention to Islam's hadith literature for more about the Islamic Gabriel. In Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 9, hadith number 6982, we read about the beginning of Muhammad's revelations. Quote, The angel came to him in it and asked him to read. The Prophet, meaning Muhammad, replied, I do not know how to read. The Prophet added, The angel caught me forcefully and pressed me so hard that I could not bear it any more. He then released me and again asked me to read, and I replied, I do not know how to read. Whereupon he caught me again and pressed me a second time till I could not bear it any more. He then released me and asked me again to read, but again I replied, I do not know how to read, or what shall I read? Thereupon he caught me for the third time and pressed me, and then released me and said, Read in the name of your Lord, who has created. He created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is most gracious, up to that which he knew not. Then Allah's messenger, meaning Muhammad, returned with the inspiration, his neck muscles twitching with terror, till he entered upon Khadija and said, Cover me, cover me. They covered him till his fear was over, and then he said, O Khadija, what is wrong with me? Then he told her everything that had happened, and said, I fear that something may happen to me. The hadith narration goes on to talk about Muhammad's conversation about this revelation with a blind old man named Waraqa, who strangely identifies the spirit by the name Namus. And then the narration says, quote, But after a few days, Waraqa died, and the divine inspiration was also paused for a while. And the Prophet became so sad, as we have heard, that he intended several times to throw himself from the tops of high mountains. And every time he went up the top of a mountain in order to throw himself down, Gabriel would appear before him and say, O Muhammad, you are indeed Allah's messenger in truth. Whereupon his heart would become quiet and he would calm down and would return home. And whenever the period of the coming of the inspiration used to become long, he would do as before,
But when he used to reach the top of a mountain, Gabriel would appear before him and say to him what he had said before.
Wow, what a total contrast between the biblical accounts of Angel Gabriel and those in Islam. Firstly, let me briefly comment on this hadith.
Did you notice that this spirit who gave revelations to Muhammad did not actually identify himself as an angel, nor as the angel Gabriel specifically? This spirit is only presumed to be Gabriel by others, including, of course, the followers of Muhammad. In fact, in the hadith, when Muhammad told the blind old man named Waraqa about his revelation, Waraqa identified this spirit by the name Namus, rather than Gabriel. Although that's an important fact to point out, I really want to discuss the two facts we've already learned from the biblical accounts of the angel Gabriel. Number one, Gabriel is known to bring calmness and help relieve the fears of people. He specifically told both Zechariah and Mary, quote, "Do not be afraid," end quote. Number two, Gabriel is also known for making sure people understood the message he brought. He spoke to Daniel saying, quote, "I have now come to give you insight and understanding," end quote. So Daniel was not left in a state of confusion.
Now let's take these two biblical facts about Gabriel and apply them to the so-called Islamic Gabriel. Specifically the Gabriel in the hadith, because the Quran cannot be a valid source for us on this topic, as relying upon it just leads to confusion about whether or not Gabriel is an angel or a jinn.
So let's apply fact number one. Did Gabriel bring calmness to Muhammad and relieve his fears? Did Gabriel approach Muhammad with the words, quote, "Do not be afraid," end quote? The answer is no, and again no. Instead, the spirit caught Muhammad forcefully and pressed him so hard that he could not bear it anymore, and he asked Muhammad to read. This led Muhammad's neck muscles to twitch with terror, and it later led Muhammad to become so sad that he intended several times to commit suicide by throwing himself from the tops of high mountains. Now let's apply fact number two. Did Gabriel make sure Muhammad understood the message he received, or was Muhammad left in a state of confusion? The answer is again no. Not only was Muhammad left feeling sad and suicidal, but he was clearly left in a state of confusion also. As we read, Muhammad was left asking his wife, quote, "What is wrong with me?" end quote. And he said, quote, "I fear that something may happen to me," end quote. Those are definitely not the words of a person who has clarity of mind and certainty. In fact, while wondering about the people's reaction, Muhammad even sought the advice of Waraqa, asking him, quote, "Will they turn me out?" end quote. So Muhammad was indeed left in a state of confusion and uncertainty, still looking for answers from others, not having the answers within himself after the revelation. Now, some of you Muslims might admit that yes, Muhammad was forcefully pressed so hard by the spirit that he could not bear it anymore and that his neck muscles were twitching with terror, but you want to point out that Mary was greatly troubled at Gabriel's words, and Daniel even fell prostrate because he was terrified. Well, I would say that this is true, but I would ask you to compare Mary's and Daniel's later emotional state to Muhammad's later emotional state after his revelations. Mary was left with the words, "Do not be afraid, Mary, you have found favor with God," while Daniel ended up being securely raised back to his feet by Gabriel, which indicates Daniel was left feeling calmer again. However, unlike Mary and Daniel, in the case of Muhammad, in his later emotional state after his revelations, he repeatedly was left feeling suicidal. Even though periodically Muhammad's heart did become quiet and calm, despite this, whenever the period of the coming of the revelation used to become long, he would still repeatedly go to throw himself from the tops of high mountains to commit suicide. You can read the hadith for yourself and see I'm telling the truth here. So Muhammad's later emotional state was nothing like Mary and Daniel in the Bible. In ending this video, I will conclude that the Islamic Gabriel whom Muhammad had encountered was not the true biblical angel Gabriel, but a deceiving demonic spirit from the jinn. I reached this conclusion only after reviewing the earlier biblical incidences of Gabriel's appearances to people and comparing these accounts with Muhammad's later alleged encounters with Gabriel, in addition to investigating Gabriel's identity in the Quran. The evidence speaks for itself. Stay away from Islam. Stay away from Satan's Antichrist deceptions.
Once again, to make myself clear, the Islamic Gabriel is none other than a jinn, demonic spirit, pretending to be the angel Gabriel, as even some of the people from Muhammad's time had suspected this to be the case, as we read in
Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 2, Hadith number 1125, quote, "Gabriel did not come to the Prophet," meaning Muhammad, "so one of the Quraysh women said, quote, 'His Satan has deserted him,' end quote." Lastly, for more information on this topic, please watch my videos titled, "This Demon Revealed the Quran to Muhammad, Finally Exposed," and "Hey False Prophet, Don't Jump."
Thanks for watching, and God bless you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.